Well, this weekend definitely turned around our sales. I mean, probably until like 2 p.m. yesterday on Sunday, we were sitting at only 2 sales. Now we have 7, so I'll take you through what they are. I think it had something to do with the fact that I'd started a few back-end sales for some of our older stock. I don't know, maybe that worked in our favor and pushed up some of our other items in the algorithm. Funnily enough, nothing that was actually on sale has sold yet, but fingers crossed that will increase their likelihood to go on throughout the end of this month because the sale will end at the end of January. But let's go through what has sold. First up, we have our classic bread and butter sales that are constantly going on in the background. They are the sealed HD DVDs. 2 of these sold for $18.62. We don't have many of these left, so I'm really glad to see how well that they've done. But also very glad to see them go out the door because they're not massive profit margins for us. It's just easy change essentially in the back end. Next up, another bread and butter listing that we've set up, very similar to the HD DVDs. We've just listed all of these individual Goosebumps and they sell pretty well at the moment actually. So we've sold issue 3 and issue 1 to the same buyer, free postage, but this has gone on to sell for $19.60. Accepted an offer on this bad boy. I mean, we haven't had it for too long. I only got it actually at the end of last year, but we were $5 into 25 plus postage. Got this at one of our favorite jumble sales. They only happen maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but you get some really great bargains from it. Now, this is a surprise to me, but we have a repeat buyer for records. You know I'm always super excited to see when these ones go out the door. So Pete, I assume you probably don't watch this, but thank you for the consistent sale of these. I am so glad to get them out the door, but also glad to see that they get to you safely. And I assume that they probably work. But this lot of records went on to sell for $27 plus postage. I feel like it's not a proper what sold video unless we're visiting the good old Wedgwood shelf. We had this little Christmas plate go out on offer for $29.99 plus postage, but I'm super excited to see that something like this still sells even though we are after Christmas. So yay, glad to see this one go as well. Another offer that we just took yesterday, and you would have seen these possibly in a recent garage sale trail video, but this phone handset pair, so there's 2 phones in there and 2 docks for them, went on to sell for $30 plus postage. And our biggest sale from the weekend, of course, comes from our gaming bundle. This Hyrule Warriors game Switch went on to sell for $95. This one we did actually have a bit of a back and forth offer war. To be honest, we wanted to stick fairly high with this. They were lowballing us with like $85. We offered $95. They counted for $89. We declined it and then they sent a new offer for the exact same price, so we accepted that one. And 2 more sales I actually forgot to mention. You can see all of our art now has condensed down to one shelf, which is absolutely fantastic. So we had a sale of 2 artworks on Marketplace. The lady had actually come just to see one and then asked me if I had more, and I was like, yes, I have a lot of art. So she ended up buying 2 pieces for $60 each, which is an absolute huge win because there is no fees and shipping involved. All packed and ready for some labels, but then I need to take it to the post office. I did want to quickly talk about a few interesting experiences that we've had recently. First off, when I go to the post office today to drop these off, I need to pick up a parcel that we sent on the 23rd of December and it still hasn't been collected by Sendle to send to the buyer. I have no idea why. We had the buyer very politely reach out to us last week being like, hey, just checking if you've sent this yet, like I haven't received it. And I was like, oh, that's really weird, like we sent that out before Christmas, odd that you haven't gotten it yet. Looked at the tracking and it said that Sendle just hasn't picked it up yet. I spoke to Sendle and they're like, oh, we're happy to lodge an investigation that will take 5 to 7 days to resolve, but first, can you go to the post office and confirm that your parcel is still there? I said that is absolutely ridiculous, that it has taken you nearly a month to pick up a parcel that we had booked. Also, the fact that you're now asking me to go and check that it's still there. If anything, you should just be sending someone out straight away because by the looks of the tracking, they do this weird thing where they say failed attempt on the day that you book it. I honestly don't think they've ever actually sent anyone out at that point. I think it's more just to say like, oh, we tried. So then they get a bit more of a buffer period when their couriers are late. Then on the tracking it said, we noticed that your parcel hasn't been picked up. We'll send someone to go and collect it. And there hasn't been an update since. So the fact that I have to go and check, I said to them basically, if I have to go and check on Monday morning that my parcel is still there because your courier company has not come to collect it, I am picking it up, cancelling that, and then because the buyer has been so polite, Matt and I have decided to send it to them express post via Ozpost. It is a bit hard because obviously Sendle is generally a lot cheaper than Ozpost, and sometimes we do need to save money where we can, especially when we're taking some offers, just to make sure that our bottom dollar is still okay, whilst we also always try and choose the most, if they're paid for shipping, the most closest to what they've paid. So we don't try and shortchange them, we don't try and save a whole lot of money, but sometimes just the way that it is, we have to go through Sendle, and usually they're pretty good. But in this instance, I was so frustrated. I'm like, what do you mean I have to go and check this for you because you failed to do your job? So I mean, fingers crossed it's still there, but I just feel absolutely terrible for the buyer. Also, the other fact is if the buyer hasn't received their item in 30 days, eBay will open up a case as an item not received and generally make us full refund to the buyer, which obviously we do not want to do. And I want them to get their product, which is a really nice green, like Viking style vase. You would have actually seen it in one of our pick and packs just before Christmas. So I feel horrible for the buyer. So I'm just, yeah, really annoyed at Sendle for that. While we're in story time, I thought I would touch on 2 recent returns that have been a bit of a weird experience. And I think it's obviously really good to help share these. So then if you guys come across them, or if you guys have had experience, like we can all upskill our knowledge on how best to handle it. Because to be honest, and I think any eBay reseller or any just eBay seller in general would completely understand that eBay does not have your back. They always take the buyer's side. It is very frustrating, but it is what it is. So first, most recently, we had a buyer who bought a camera. Again, it would have been on one of our pick and packs. I was super excited to send it out. It was all tested and working, and in the photos you could see it was working. They got it, and then I think it was about 4 days after it had been marked as delivered, they reached out to us going, it doesn't work, it's broken. And in that case, you're always a bit like, okay, did it actually break in the mail, or did it break in those 4 days that you had it and now you want a refund because you dropped it or something? In those cases, it is really hard because they can open up that eBay case saying that it arrived damaged. Whether or not that was actually true, we have no way to prove that. I mean, we package it as best as we can, but this buyer was really nice, really understanding. They were very helpful. So basically what happened is the camera lens doesn't retract. It makes a weird whirring noise. The battery is fully charged. It worked perfectly fine when I tested it and took photos of it before listing. So some time between then and the person getting this, or even after they've got it, it has somehow broken. So thankfully they sent it all back. You also get like a little bit of paper that they have to include saying like the reason why, the item number and the buyer and all that information. So they've marked it as damaged during shipping. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, and there's no way for us to really prove that. But because we've got the camera back, I can now either try and sell it for parts to recoup some of the money, or see if I can even fix it. I mean, I've had a few goes at it. It does make a weird whirring noise. So like in that aspect, they are correct, but I'm, yeah, not entirely sure what to do with this one now. We did thankfully get it for free. So for us, the only costs that we've really lost is the original shipping to the buyer, and the return shipping to us, because at the end of the day, I strongly believe that if anyone is complaining about your item, they have to send it back. So then you can verify that. Never, ever, ever just give an immediate refund, because that can also be a scam where they say it's broken, damaged, or whatever. You go, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want possibility of negative feedback. I'll just give them an instant refund, when in actual fact, their item is perfectly fine. Which brings me on to the next one that we had just before Christmas. This one was a really odd sale because first off, I'd listed this Xbox as like the console, the controller, and a Xbox Connect as well. But You could see there were no cables included in any of the images. I didn't include in the title, in the description, anywhere saying that it came with the correct cables. Normally if it does, I say like including cables, controller, blah, 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 blah. So in this listing, I hadn't mentioned any of that. The photos were super clear as to what it was. So we sent it out. This lady had gotten it on our Black Friday deals. So they had already gotten it at a bit of a discount. She said it was for her son. And she basically sent us a message when it arrived saying, hey, didn't come with the cables. Can you please send them ASAP? I politely replied saying, it doesn't come with cables, as you can see from the listing and everything else. No cables are included in this bundle, hence also why the original price of the Xbox was even cheaper than what it normally would have gone for, because it came with a limited edition red controller. So we'd upped it from that sense, but we also made sure to make it still a bit cheaper than ones that were fully complete. She then got really frustrated, being like, oh, it's absolutely ridiculous that we had to pay this price for something that wasn't completed. Like, went full Karen on me. And I was the whole time just going, look, I'm sorry. We do offer refunds, so should you choose to, you can send it back and we will offer you a refund minus the original shipping, because that does classify as a change of mind rather than a faulty product. She got more angry. I just kept on saying, look, like, we offer this, whatever. Didn't hear from her. And then maybe another like 10 or so days later, she messages going, my son just spent money on buying a power cord for it and it doesn't work. You sent us a faulty item. I demand a refund. And I'm just like, I always thoroughly test our consoles before we list it. So then a part of me, it was also, because this was before this camera situation, but a little part of me always goes, oh, did something happen during the post? Like, very unlikely. We bubble wrap these to the insanity just to make sure that they arrive safely. So we just like to her, okay, fine, like, send it back. Again, we offer returns. And again, very polite. I'm like, let me know if you need help during this returns process. Like, I'm happy to walk you through it, because it's not always super clear on the buyer side how to easily do it. eBay might want to improve on that. But so I was just like, that's a bit weird. She sent photos. She lodged a whole, this item doesn't work, it's faulty case, which then naturally means that your money goes on hold. And so you can't access that money until the item gets back to you. The item got back to us. I plugged it in and it worked perfectly fine. So now we're in a bit of a pickle, because they've sent it back saying that it is faulty and doesn't work, which then means because of the way that it's been sent back, we would be liable for the shipping. It's not a change of mind. Where when I look at it now, I'm like, it is a change of mind. Was she just annoyed because of the way that it didn't come with the cables and had to spend more? I don't know. But it put us in a really hard position, because she's messaging us being like, oh, I can see it's been returned. Like, I demand my refund. Where's my refund? The next day. And this wasn't like, we probably got it in the afternoon at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. She'd messaged us at 8 p.m. being like, where's my refund? First thing the next morning, where's my refund? And I'm like, I need to test this first. And then when it did work, I was like, well, shit, what do we do now? Because I can't partially refund a buyer if they've sent it back on a faulty returns. So I obviously messaged eBay support being like, hi, help, what do we do? And they were basically like, well, because you have the item back now, you have to give them a full refund. And I said, I'm happy to give them a refund for the item back, but I shouldn't have to pay for the postage there and back, because the item did work. Like, obviously either the power cable that the kid bought wasn't compatible or it could have been broken, but that's not our fault. We sent them exactly what they ordered. It worked exactly as intended, but now we're being told that we have to give them the full refund. And so this is really frustrating, because then they go, oh, you can report the buyer for a misuse of the refund policy. And I'm like, I genuinely don't know if she was intentionally doing that. She actually might have thought it was broken. So in her eyes, it was the appropriate approach. But at the end of the day, it means it would cost us money. And so all of this back and forth, I was explaining to her, I'm like, look, it works fine. I even sent her photos of it working. She's like, oh, but it didn't work for us. And I'm like, again, that would be a user error in that instance. And so what ended up happening was eBay said, well, because you have the item back, give them a full refund, but you can be eligible to lodge a misuse of the returns and get the return postage refunded to you, because that had also been deducted from our account along with the original purchase price and original shipping. So with this console now, it is obviously a bit frustrating because we did end up getting the money back, and I felt bad because we had to report her, and that probably gave her a strike against her name. But I was also worried that if we did report her, she wouldn't have shown malicious activity in the past. That means that eBay would have put it in our favor, because usually they look for consistent red flags. If it's a one-off, they're very rarely going to penalize the buyer, and then the seller just has to cop it. Thankfully, it didn't go that way. They did give us the money back. I did prove that it was working to them, so I'm like, yeah, that's definitely her fault. But it did mean that we still were out the original shipping. And if any of you guys have ever shipped a Xbox console, you know it's not cheap. It usually ranges, depending on when they're located in Australia, $18 to like $25. So we were out that in pocket, plus the original cost of goods. I was a bit worried relisting it, and I made sure I included in the title this time, like, no cables, please note, like it comes as is. I was able to get it for the original sale price, because this was obviously after our Black Friday sales. And thankfully, for what it sold for and where the new person was, it was actually closer, so shipping was a bit cheaper. We still managed to make, I think, like maybe like $20 or $30 on the console. I was really worried that after all of this, we would be at a loss for nothing of our own fault. So I would love to hear if you guys have had any experiences with something like that, where they've misused the returns policy, or you are confident that you sent it, tested and working, and then they've said it's broken or damaged. Like, what do you do in those instances? I would love to hear your thoughts. I think my natural reaction is just to give them the refund once we get the item back, so then I can actually test it and have a chance to resell it again. But obviously that's not necessarily the most profitable. So yeah, would love to hear what you guys think. I do have some other stories that I think I want to share with you guys, possibly just in another video, in terms of international shipping and the upsides, and definitely some of the biggest downsides to doing it. So stay tuned for that one, but please let me know your thoughts. eBay can be very frustrating, and the support generally is not on your side, despite what they say, saying, we hope you have the best experience. We'll make sure that it's good. Yeah, I never feel fully supported by them, or I've literally had to spend 2 or 3 hours in the chat with them to convince them that we are still in the right, when it's obvious that we're in the right. Anywho, sorry for my rant and ramble, but let's fingers crossed that this vase is still at the post office and I can send it express to the buyer. But thank you for watching. I look forward to hearing your comments down below about your experiences, and I will see you on the next one. Bye. Good news, this bad boy was still at the post office, so we have reprinted the label and have marked it for express post. So hopefully this will get to our lovely buyer, Daniel ASAP Rocky. We're just feeling absolutely horrendous about this, but I'm glad that it was still at the post office so that we're able to amend it and make it right.